John Gendawala, Director Inspection, standing for the Permanent Secretary. So this is a written statement. Honorable Minister of Local Government, Honorable Minister of State of Government, Your Excellencies, Ambassadors and High Commissioners, District Chairpersons, Mayors, Chief Administrative Officers, and other representatives of local governments, Permanent Secretaries and other senior managers and staff of the Ministry of Local Government and other MDAs, representatives of the Uganda Local Government Association and of the Urban Authorities Association, representatives of the World Bank, the United Nations Development Program, UNCDF, European Delegation to Uganda and other international cooperation agency partners, GIZ Country Director, the Road Development Cluster Coordinator and Head of the Promoting Road Development PRODEV program, representatives of the business sector, academia, representatives of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the Ministry of Local Government, I warmly welcome you to this launch of the National Strategy for Local Economic Development. I wish to begin by sharing this quote by Audrey Hepburn. Opening of quote. Nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible. Close quotes. This quote should inspire us today and in the implementation of this strategy. The Ministry of Local Government, the Ministry of Local Government's mandate is to guide, harmonize, mentor, and advocate for all local governments in support of the vision of government to bring about socio-economic transformation of the country. This mandate is translated into the following specific functions. 1, build human and institutional capacity in the local governments for efficient service delivery to the population. 2, ensure that local governments comply with statutory requirements and adhere to national policies and standards. 3, ensure that local governments are transparent and accountable to the people in the use of public resources so that development takes place. 4, facilitate the implementation of the decentralization policy and enhancing democratic governance in the country through developing and reviewing systems, structures, statutory instruments, and guidelines on local governance. And 5, promote local economic development as the sixth pillar of decentralization in support of wealth creation at the household level with a view of raising taxable incomes and reducing dependence. Since 2006, when local economic development was adopted as the sixth objective of decentralization, the Ministry has focused on its cascading to the lowest level in the subnational governments. A number of projects and programs were designed, funded, and implemented in the local governments, and we continue to do so to date. Some of the completed and ongoing projects and programs include the third development plan, DDP3, strengthening institutional frameworks, second Millennium Villages project, community agriculture infrastructure improvement projects, CAIP 1, 2, and 3, markets and agriculture trade improvement program, MATIP 1 and MATIP 2, urban markets and marketing development of agricultural products project, UMDAP, regional integration implementation program for Uganda, the community roads improvement project, the development initiative for northern Uganda, the inclusive and sustainable communities project, local finance initiative, agricultural development project, project for restoration of livelihoods in Northern Uganda, Northern Uganda Action Fund, and the Rural Development and Food Security project in Northern Uganda. From this inventory of projects, it is clear that government and its government partners, namely Enabel, previously the Belgium Technical Corporation, UNDP, UNCDF, Quaker, Islamic Development Bank, African Development Bank, and the German Development Corporation, JZ, have invested a lot of resources in the supply side and not on the demand side. Appropriate LED initiatives should A, be acknowledged in the community, B, provide infrastructure and services, C, strengthen competitiveness and enterprise development, and D, strengthen local economic governance. As such, noble and well-developed project ideas like infrastructure development of roads, markets and warehouses should be matched with increased yield from farmers and other businesses for the resources to be put to optimal use. The implementation of local economic development in our local governments has been mixed. In some local governments, lead implementation has progressed with stories of great success, while in others, limited success or even no implementation at all is the story. In putting together this national strategy for local economic development, the Ministry of Local Government sought to chart an innovative and exciting new strategic direction for successful implementation of local economic development in the country. I'm confident that all of us present here today want to see our local governments providing efficient and sustainable services, improving the welfare of the people and the eradication of poverty. Our collective ideas and thoughts that have been put into charting this new direction showed that together we can make LED. This national strategy on lead is a product of an extensive and inclusive consultative approach. I'm confident that this national strategy expresses the future aspirations of all the lead stakeholders. It will be a framework through which we will apply our resources and strength that will enable us to exploit the available opportunities and confront threats that may force us in our quest to achieve our vision of a vibrant and competitive private sector-led local economy for poverty eradication, wealth creation, and prosperity. The National Development Plans Program approach calls us all to embrace collaborations and coordination in endeavors to move this country into a middle-income status. The Ministry of Local Government provides leadership in regard to the Regional Development Program. That is an affirmative action intervention that aims to accelerate equitable economic growth and development and reduce poverty in the lagging regions, sub-regions of Karamoja, Bukedi, Bugisu, Busoga, West Nile, Teso, Acholi, and Munyoro. The regional development actors, regional development planning actors at the national level include National Executive at the apex, Office of the Prime Minister, ministries, departments and agencies, Parliament, the media, development partners, the private sector, national NGOs, national level political actors, academia, and other non-state actors. At the sub-national level, actors include local governments, cities, civil society organizations, the private sector, local level political actors, farmer cooperatives, and academia, including researchers. All those actors need to be effectively coordinated so that they work towards a common purpose. Their roles and responsibilities should be clearly defined and how they relate to each other. And others should also be clarified. The Ministry of Local Government also hosts the parish development model that positions the parish as the epicenter of multi-sectoral community development, planning and implementation, supervision and accountability. The parish is the lowest reference unit for planning, budgeting, delivery of interventions to drive socio-economic transformation. The PDM is expected to create wealth, employment, and increase household incomes. In concluding my remarks, let us acknowledge that the past is behind us. Let us also know that the future will come with more encounters and challenges. We must therefore gear up to be at the top of our game. That is lead promotion. The national strategy for lead provides some exciting suggestions regarding the direction of lead. Through this strategy, we also expect a transformation of our local governments into entities that proactively facilitate effective business-oriented locality development with a focus on poverty reduction and sustainable wealth creation. Managing this transition well will most definitely bring us closer to realizing the policy vision. Realizing the goals in the national strategy for lead will require increased passion in our work, teamwork, working smarter, raising our analytical competencies, effective communication, and unity of purpose. I would like finally to thank everyone who contributed to the development of this national strategy. In particular, I acknowledge the tremendous work put into preparing this national aid strategy under the leadership of the Local Economic Development Department and with support from other development departments of the Ministry of Local Government. Special thanks go to the Commissioner, Local Economic Development Department, and the Technical Advisor to the Department, who spearheaded the preparation of this strategy. I also wish to extend my gratitude to the senior and top management of the Ministry of Local Government for their strategic oversight during the strategic development process. The presence of the Ministry's leadership today further demonstrates this commitment. We are greatly indebted to our partners, the German Development Corporation through GIZ, promoting road development program, who have not only worked with us since 2019, but also played a very instrumental role in supporting the development of the national strategy on lead, and today's launch to be a success. May I now thank all of you here present and those participating online for joining the ministry at this very important milestone in our effort to promote local economic development. Once again, you're all welcome, and I wish you good deliberations during the launch. I saw this for God and my country.
Thank you. Thank you, the acting PS, for your remarks. I must again recognize the representative of UNDP, United Nations Capital Development Funds, the European delegation, Someone wrote here others, but I don't want to use the word others again. So, do we have the team from the Local Government Association present? You're most welcome. Very welcome. May I right now invite the Country Director GIZ to make his remarks, please. You're welcome.
So when I speak, you can hear me. Good morning, liebe Tia. And guten Morgen in German. It takes a little bit of time to get my notes in order because you said so many things already. I don't want to repeat them. Thank you very much, Director Valana. So instead of 15 pages, I'm only going to read 3 to you this time and not put you to sleep. Thank you very much. A very warm welcome here and at screens in your offices or at home if you're doing mobile office. I'm very happy and I'm very proud on behalf of GIZ and the German government to be able here to help you launching the national strategy on local economic development. It's wonderful that the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Water, Ms. Okotokide, is here. You are such a wonderful partner to us in many projects, I believe. And so it's lovely to have you here. Thank you very much. And the Director Valala, who's the acting PS this morning, thank you very much for coming in as well. And there are more distinguished guests arriving by and by. Our colleagues from the United Nations, for example, Mr. Palani, if I pronounce your name properly, you know. The colleagues from UNDP, my colleague from the KfW, I saw this morning. It's lovely that you are here. We're doing this in conjunction, you know, all Germany's efforts in conjunction with the KfW. I can't and I don't want to forget my colleague David Löw, who's sitting here at the table in front, who is the representative of the German Embassy, but also representative of the German Development Corporation. Without him, that wouldn't be possible that we are celebrating the launch or our participation in the launch this morning, because they do provide the financial resources for all the work GIZ does and KfW does. So I do keep smiling at him, you know, to say thank you. Our colleague from the EU, but also I met some very nice colleagues of ours this morning. For example, Professor Maggie Kigosi from the Private Sector Foundation. She's actually a professor and tells me she's a farmer. This only happens in Uganda. Academia, researchers, representatives of the media, the Local Government Association, and dear colleagues, ladies, gentlemen, friends, everybody present, and I hope I'm okay with the protocol at the moment. Who is talking to you? My name is James Macbeth. I'm the Country Director of GIZ. I've been here 2 years. However, it's my second reiteration of being in Uganda. I started with GIZ in 2001, and I was with the Ministry of Gender, Labour, Social Development at the time, and finished my first tour here in 2006. And in terms of development, I have something to say. There is, when I arrived from the airport here, you know, back in July 2020 during the lockdown, I couldn't find or recognize my old GIZ office, because there's so much which has happened in between, you know, buildings and infrastructure. And I was quite happy for Uganda that this happened. So we do have development. We've got very we've got very good, hard-working people in this country, and I hope that the national strategy will be able later on to harness, you know, the approach and the hard-working officials, private sector, civil society, but also our farmers and everybody who's in the productive field to go further and do more. You will hear more of that local economic development is based on a good public sector, private sector and civil society to harmonize and utilize and work together for local opportunities of economic development. And I know it's only remarks which I'm doing, and I'm improvising this now, so you can struck it off the record if you don't like it. But you know, when you come to the airport, we're going to be having a new airport building and a new arrivals and departure hall. That's development. But what you are doing with the Ministry of Local Government and the partners is the airport and the way it looks doesn't mean so much to the farmer up north. What means something to the farmer is, can they make a decent living? And then this strategy helps us all together to do something to help them make a decent living and not just eke out any living. I think we are a big step forward. Why do I think, being a Brit, that Germany is a wonderful partner to implement local economic development? And I have to say, you know, take my hat off to Germany. The makeup of their economy is mostly small to medium enterprises. If you think back, for those who are old enough, to the financial crash, you know, and the turn, you know, the downfall of the international economic system, I think it was in 2008, 2009. The Germans came through it quite unscathed. Why? There are big industries, but the backbone of it, of course, is, I'm shouting too much, am I? Maybe this is a quieter microphone, I don't know. So the backbone of the German economy is small and medium enterprises. There's such a high degree of diversification, and I think, you know, because the UK was tanking at the time, and I think that's a wonderful model if we, from the German side, can put our knowledge and experiences into a local economic development strategy. The same thing happens at the moment, you know, with the pandemic. There's lots of troubles, of course, with the German budget as well, but compared to some of the other European partners and rivals, I think they're handling it in a sensible and quite successful way. So I think when we talk about local economic development, local, I think is a very good answer. Maybe not the only approach, but a very good answer. So I'm taking this morning very serious. Now, how can GIZ support you in this? We're doing so many things, I believe, in Uganda, and thank you very much, Mr. Walala, for mentioning it. Okay. We have, of course, a big program in rural development, but also energy and energy efficiency, because there's no energy, there's no development. We're supporting the refugee hosting communities. We've got our colleagues from the RISE program over here. RISE, not RICE, RISE program, you know. We have a lot of work in accountability and securing accountability, skilling in the private sector, and the German government, the Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, in short, the BMZ, you know, we're collaborating very closely with our European partners, but particularly with the European Union. And so our work actually directly supports local economic development, and we've had also discussions about the parish development model, and I'm looking forward to going further in the discourse which we need to take and we need to make in order to make all these things happening. So how so? For example, by supporting the development of bylaws, protecting the environment, integrating local economic development in the critical district plans for the Chief Administrative Officer, and a very warm welcome to the Minister. Thank you very much for coming in. It's lovely to have you here, Minister, for this occasion. I'll now say a proper thank you in a second. Okay. So the Chief Administrative Officer here, you know how important local economic development is. We're supporting development of staff in our partner ministries and at the very, very local government level, because that's where development happens. Business training for farmers about markets, climate change, land governance, land rights, productive use of solar energy for businesses, and I could go on and on and on. I think we have around about 60 plus projects altogether in Uganda, for which I would like to say, not to the German government, where David is only, but also to you, Ugandan counterparts, having an agency, a German agency, you know, supporting you in your innermost workings of the government and the state, requires also a lot of trust. And I'm grateful that you afford that trust to us and my colleagues who are relentlessly working together with you to improve the lot and the lives of the Ugandan citizens, you know, our brothers and sisters, if I may say so. So I have to point out that these programs which we're doing are, because we have government negotiations, are not just important programs that what the Germans think you should do. We develop them together. We sit with you side by side. And if you look at our cars, it's got the German and the Ugandan flag on it. We're doing these things together. These are Ugandan programs. They're not German programs, they're Ugandan programs. And so it's a privilege to be able to help you, says the country director of GIZ. So thank you. Thank you very much to the Ministry of Local Government. You're such an important partner to us. And you've been the successful political partner with us for RISE, the project, and PRUDEF since 2017, and it has been a success story. It is a very happy partnership, the close collaboration. As I just pointed out, you know, it uses a lot, it needs a lot of trust and mutual understanding for the implementation to make these programs actually happen and impact on the ground. And I very much hope, Honourable Minister, that the feeling is mutual, that you're also happy with the partnership with GIZ. So I congratulate the government of Uganda and all the stakeholders who have been part and parcel of it to the launch of the local economic development national strategy. And I hope with the little what we can do, that is going to be a successful strategy, but then the implementation, as we see, as we usually say, the pudding is in the eating. So we've got the pudding, but now we need to eat it, and I hope we can do this together. Thank you ever so much, and have very good deliberations this morning. You need to take the microphone away from me, otherwise I keep on talking. Thank you. Oops.
I'm sure you've noticed I have an assistant master of ceremonies here, the country director, GIZ. I deliberately did not introduce Professor Maggie Chikozi because I wanted to come at the time, because she's going to be a panelist. Sometimes you let certain things be later. But my assistant MC has let the cat out of the bag. It's a joke. Honourable Minister, you're most welcome. You're welcome. I know you've been in a very long journey. Before we do the anthems, may I recognize Mr. David Lowe, the Deputy Head of Development Corporation, German Embassy. May I also recognize the Country Director, KFW, the Country Director, You're most welcome.
She's probably happy about the promotion.
We also have Mr. Adam Bavali, the acting secretary. Mr. Adam Bavali is there, you're most welcome. Acting secretary in the Local Government Finance Commission. We have Madam Winnie Lawoko Ore from the Uganda Investment Authority. We have Dr. Julius Biaruhanga from the Private Sector Foundation. You're most welcome.
Recording in progress.
We are also having the launch being live streamed online. So our audience that online, you're also most welcome. Please continue being online. May I request that we stand for the national anthem and then the East African.
Viwandani na hata mashambani
These are some of the very few instances where you can tell or request very senior officials to sit down when you're a junior officer. So how would you expect me to tell the minister to take his seat and take his seat? So these are the only, and it's my privilege. It's none of yours, it's mine. Honourable Minister, we've had remarks from the Acting Permanent Secretary, Minister of Local Government, who is standing in for the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Local Government. We've also had remarks from the country director, GIZ. Honourable Minister, we also have the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Water present. We are launching the strategy. And the strategy is to benefit the communities at the grassroots level. What can be done to bring an income or some income in the pockets of the local person with support from the structures, the government, local businesses, and so on. We're also having live streaming. We have people online who are with us. And next, Prime Minister, may I invite the Commissioner, Local Economic Development, Mr. Anton Namara, to give a presentation on a national-led strategy. Commissioner, I'm also welcome.
The Honourable Minister of Local Government, Honourable Raphael Magezi, representative of the German ambassador, representatives of the diplomatic corps, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Water and Environment, representatives of the permanent secretaries, GIZ country director, our elder and senior citizen, Dr. Maggie Chigozi, representative of the district chairpersons, senior staff from government, ministries and departments, colleagues from the GIZ, all lead champions attending online, the media fraternity, all invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. I must say, today is a great day. I would just compare it with what you are familiar with. You know, childbearing is not easy. It takes a long time. 9 months of waiting. So in here today, we have those who are fathering this, the child who is yet to be born and veiled by the great doctor who is going to be the Honourable Minister, but we also have the midwives who are also in attendance with the Honourable Minister, but also I'll mention that we've been having the gynecologists and other support staff who have been helping during this gestation period. So I must say the struggle has been long, the carrying has been tiring, but at the end of the day, according to information from the doctor, the child is yet to be born. My presentation will have the introduction. I'll give the strategic direction, and then strategy implementation. Then I'll also mention on the strategy financing. The key timelines that I wish to highlight to you, invited guests and Honorable Minister, is how far we have moved in this process of coming up with this child we are yet to unveil. In 2005, a joint annual review of decentralization recommended strongly the need to add on the 5 objectives of decentralization a component of local economic development as a 6th pillar to promote local economic development in order to enhance people's income and widen the tax base. In 2007, an attempt was made and we had the first lead strategy developed, and we must thank BTC that supported then the development of the first lead strategy. In 2016, we had the drafting of the second lead strategy, but which was not completed, but was work in progress. But before that, I wish to inform our guests that the lead policy came into place in 2014, and I'm sure many of you are able to Google and find the lead policy, which is very elaborate, and thanks to all people who contributed to this lead policy. Now, in 2019, we see the birth of the department, which was tasked to create the strategy for lead, which we embarked on. In 2022, which is the year of the Lord, is when we are going to see and witness the launch of this national strategy for local economic development. The Ministry of Local Government is mandated to guide, harmonize, mentor, and advocate for all local governments in support of bringing about socio-economic transformation of the country. And you know very well, today, government is spearheading the parish development model, which is housed, or where the secretariat is within the Ministry of Local Government, in order partly to also carry out this mandate. As you know, the ministry's responsibility is to inspect, monitor, and where necessary, offer technical advice and assistance, and also offer supervision and training to all local governments. So much as we are operating within the decentralized arrangement, the ministry plays a key role in ensuring that we keep supporting the local governments. Of course, the lead department derives its core functions from what the ministry offers. In terms of offering training, we are interested specifically in skilling women and youth, and as you know, very soon the President will be unveiling the industrial hubs, which are housed within the local governments for empowering the youth and women in different trades that will enhance their capabilities in promoting their skills, but also making them more employable, but also more sufficient in terms of having capacity to employ themselves by way of making use of the industrial hubs where they will be using the common user facilities. Our duty also is to champion and carry on mindset change. This is very critical because even within the parish development model, it's one of the pillars which we'll be working on together with other stakeholders. Our other activities, of course, is also within the public infrastructure development. I'm sure you have seen what the ministry has done through different initiatives in the development of roads. Those who know KAIP 1, KAIP 2, several kilometers of roads have been established, and a lot of feeder roads that link the market have also been put in place. Then, of course, we have the responsibility on intra-private sector dialogue, facilitating linkages for private investment, and no wonder that's why today we have Dr. Maggie Chigozi to showcase some of the linkages we have with the private sector. Then, important, monitoring performance of development infrastructure. It's our key responsibility as led department, as a ministry, because we know this is a fact that touches the grassroots. So, rationale for this strategy. Why led strategy? It's a big question. We need to know that the national led strategy provides a framework for strategic coordination, planning, and implementation based on a commonly shared understanding. You know, the absence of an implementation framework has been affecting us negatively. And it has been affecting us to the extent that we are not able to fully operationalize the policy. There were structural gaps. Coordination was difficult amongst the central government, but also amongst the local governments, to the extent that many local governments still think that LED is a project. They don't believe that's what is supposed to be the direction for helping us reduce poverty within the localities. The LED strategy is expected to facilitate and support the following: operationalization of implementation structure. Therefore, we need to align existing planned government programs and make them visible and be able to link them to the communities in order to promote local economic development. Then acquisition of requisite-led technical capacities in central and local governments. And I wish to thank this juncture the GIZ, mainly in areas where they're operating. They have been playing a very big role in building capacity of local governments in this venture. Then, of course, we need to, I think they deserve another clap. Then financing for LED project interventions. We are happy today we have some government key officials who determine some of the projects that are presented to Ministry of Finance. Joseph, we have been struggling, presenting projects without having a strategy. But now that we have the strategy, I think our work is going to be easy, and we think that now we'll have a sail-through in the presentations. Prioritization of investments in economic infrastructure for LED. A lot has been done. Markets have been developed, And amidst that, we have the coordinator for MATIP, who has been spearheading the development of markets in the key cities. Almost everywhere you go, you find markets. Now, what we need is to link these markets to the production pattern. And this is well elaborated within this strategy. Creation of vibrant private sector that is organized, and also nationwide led implementation. Now, the process which we have gone through after creating the department. As I said, the department was created in 2019, and immediately we embarked on the development of this strategy. So we started reviewing the past strategy of 2016. In 2020, amidst COVID, and I must thank the team that was working even under those harsh conditions, where we had ride shops and workshops, we had retreats, and we had a lot of deliberations. We had lots of nights where we burnt candles, reviewing and writing this strategy. In 2021, we held a validation exercise with different MDAs, different local governments, and different other stakeholders, because we wanted this strategy to be owned by everybody, because this is a national-led strategy. Then today, as you know, as you can witness, we are finalizing the long process where we are going to unveil the national-led strategy, and we flag it off for action. Now, all this we are doing it, and we want to emphasize that our interest is to stick to the mission and mission statement of having a vibrant and competitive private sector-led local economy for poverty reduction, wealth creation, and prosperity. Then our mission, I must resound it, is to create the local and national governance mechanisms which promote a conducive economic and political environment for private sector investment, employment creation in local areas for improved household incomes and service delivery. The core values which we are talking about and which we are hinged on, and if we adhere to these core values, we are hopeful that they will be successful. Integrity, dedication to serving with honesty, high professional standards, and good ethical conduct. And I believe once we do this, then we will win over the confidence of our development partners to partner with us for development. Accountability, direct responsibility for the actions and decisions entrusted to us for the good of all public servants and citizens. Desire to improve, always striving to achieve a greater user experience at a reasonable cost. Teamwork, we believe that as we work together, the way we are, because now this is a representation of the teamwork we are talking about. Development partners, all ministries and departments, private sector, the media to champion the airing of some of the views that the population need to know. Once we uphold this, then we believe we'll be going in the right direction. The strategic goals, I'll highlight them. Strengthen capabilities of Ministry of Local Government and local government for lead key. So we need partnership from people who can develop systems that can read through and coordinate and bring out issues that need to be known digitally for promotion of local economic development. Strategy implementation. How are we going to implement this strategy? The strategy will have a coordination framework comprising of the national-led support different initiatives. As I said, MATIP is being supported. We have programs like DINU, which is being supported through funding from UNCDF, and I must thank the country director for the support you are rendering the ministry through support of DINU. Then, of course, GIZ has supported us through different programs. RISE, it has also supported us through PRUDEV. I will thank you for the work you are doing, mostly for the population in the PRUDEV districts you are supporting. Honorable Minister, you need to see this for yourself. A lot is going on where they are implementing government efforts in the districts of Lango and Acholi, and of course also through RISE in the districts of West Nile. Then of course we expect support through the private sector funding, through partnerships. As you know, as I've said, you have seen a good example in Arua that is evident of what the private sector can do in line with local economic development. But of course we believe that once we have different initiatives aimed at solving some of the inadequacies, will help the local governments to build their capacity in order to improve their revenue generating modalities. I've put a budget. I don't expect that development partners or government representatives will say, I'm going to tackle this. It's food for thought, where we need to highlight. This budget is also provided within the strategy. Once you receive your books, look at it carefully. Look out what you can support. Because we believe in the next remaining years, if we have combined effort, a lot can be achieved if we fulfill this budget. It's a modest budget, I must say. Now, next steps. Consolidating proposals for funding. We need to work on projects for capacity building. Capacity building is key because it would be like allowing a driver to steer a commercial vehicle when he has no license. So we believe that once we build the capacity of local governments, then we'll be able to achieve what we want to achieve. Then our next target is agricultural value chain development. Government is having different initiatives in place under this, and it is highlighted in the parish development model, because we believe once we add value to our products, then we'll add more money to the people who are producing. Then we believe that we need also to work out a project on tourism development. Once we do this, then we'll be linking the natural endowment to different initiatives that will also add extra money to our population. Then we need also to work out a project on strengthening, monitoring, evaluation, and learning digital project. These proposals are considered to be realistic and feasible for quick implementation, above all, potential for quick, visible effect. Then, we are not saying that we are going to reach out to you, we are reaching out to the development partners now. that we need support. Support the communities we are designated to support. So we think together, once we scrutinize this strategy, we'll know where the inroads are that can help come in, support the localities in a more coordinated manner. Now, I have some few questions I wish to pose, and this strictly goes to local governments. You may not answer now, but your takeaway questions. Because as I said, we are linked to the local governments because I would say we are the father of the local governments. Much as they are also independent, but we are extremely linked. The cord has never been cut. Do you know your own economy? Do you know how competitive you are as local governments? Is the private sector or firms at the center of your development agenda within your respective local governments? Then finally, are you working as a team? Because once all these questions are well answered and well conceptualized, then it means we'll be thinking in the same direction. Now, lastly, allow me appreciate the government of Uganda for creating enabling environment for all of us as players to have a contribution to make. More so for the support received through the government for enhancing local economic development. And I wish to bribe in the courts, the Minister of Finance. We thank you for the support. Continue supporting us because we are partners, and once we achieve, then you have achieved in one way or the other. And of course, allow me thank the Honorable Minister for personally making time to be with us. And as I might inform you guests, the Honorable Minister is not only an expert, but he's also a lady champion. And he's highly experienced within the sector he's leading, and he's one of the founding fathers for LED, because at the time when the policy was being formulated, he was at the helm at the ministry, that time in different capacities. So we thank the Honorable Minister for making time, but more so for the support you offer to the Department of Local Economic Development. I wish to thank the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Local Government, because indeed he has been a father. He has recruited all of us, he has held our hand, and now we are able to walk without much support. Allow me to thank other development partners, specifically GIZ once again, UNDP, UNCDF, World Bank, because it is supporting us in one way or another through USMID, but also it's yet to support the 10 cities in the development of the strategies. Special thanks to the European Union. We have been with you in the field with the GIZ in promoting climate smart agriculture. Let me thank in a special way our technical advisor in the LED department, Charles Abora. Kindly stand up. Charles Abora is a special person, and I think he's God sent, and he has done a lot during this process. Let me thank the members whom I refer to as team led. Stand up for recognition. Team led, stand up. These are technical people within the ministry, but specifically who are dealing with the day-to-day activities in the lead department. Let me recognize the senior officials from Ministry of Local Government. Wherever you are, please stand up, because you have been very supportive. We passed this strategy through the senior management. They went through and located, and that's the reason why we are here. Let me thank also the task force from the ministry who have been at the helm of helping us in coordinating this activity. Wherever you are, kindly stand up. Honorable Minister, I also wish to thank.
And partly this is because it's a detached ecosystem with respect at the local level. For example, I would own my business in your local government, but my employees, the markets where I sell my products, the incentives to which I respond reside elsewhere. So for several issues or services, I run away from you and run somewhere else to get these kind of services and support, and not you. So that's part of the reasons. And then the strategy, as was detailed by the commissioner, has a very large private sector focus in addition to the other stakeholders. Before I proceed on the strategy itself and why it has to, and how local governments should change such that the narrative between these two entities is changed, it is worth highlighting the promise. In 2014, the Ministry of Local Government, through the national-led policies, sought to deliver, and I quote, a transformed local government system that facilitates effective business-oriented local development with a focus on poverty reduction and sustainable wealth creation. The critical promise in this state, in my view, was effective business-oriented locality development. 8 years later, we are launching these various strategies to actualize this specific promise. Prior to the adopting of the 20 you don't meet some of the regulations, there have also been instances where the private sector has linked up with particular local governments, and I'll single out KCCA in this particular, where they worked with KCCA and NEMA regarding issues of environmental compliance, specifically on wastewater management. Many of the manufacturers we have in this city produce a lot of waste, and its disposal sometimes can be a challenge. So they've worked in ways to reduce hazardous wastewater spilling into the various trenches in Kampala. These relationships have been partly affected by the level and nature of interactions could be considered extractive. Every time a local government official steps into a private enterprise, is being squeezed for this tax, for these fees. This has a negative effect in as far as the private sector seeks to maintain an arm's length relationship with the local government. And I'm happy to note that the current strategy we are launching today is partly addressing this shortfall. Some of these relationships would not be considered good in as far as beyond being extractive. Sometimes the relationships are confrontational, especially where you have the local government as a regulator. If I'm a private business and you as the local government, every time you're approaching me, it's on a relatively confrontational basis. As I said, I'm more likely to keep an arm's length relationship with you. For example, if you come to my premises, you end up fining me for this or for the other shortfall, I will keep away from you. On the other hand, if you approach me as a partner, I can start opening up to you regarding the challenges I face, and I could also inform you of a need that I feel that can be either solved by you as the local government, as the entity, or by the community which you help supervise. It's also important to note that CSR-driven initiatives, although important, might not lead to practical solutions that benefit the wider community. So you have a malaria day, we sponsor bed nets, we come in and we do it over the weekend, we are out and we go back. We wait for the next malaria day the next year or the next quarter. So that might not be very, very beneficial since it's not sustained over a very long time. The focus of my address this morning will be on the avenues that local government can use to collaborate with the private sector beyond the traditional CSR engagements and other perceived extraction arrangements. The first is that private businesses, especially the large employers, and there are very many large employers in both local governments like KCCA, but even in several other local governments outside the realm of KCCA. These private employers offer local governments opportunities to reach communities at a relatively low cost, primarily using this large employee base. If I can use the example of manufacturers, factories can be considered as communities aggregators. For example, if I could use Mukwano Industry, which is probably the nearest from this hotel venue, it offers, given the relatively large number of employees, it offers a good mix of what we researchers classify as a representative sample of persons from all walks of life. In particular, it draws from the relatively well-to-do areas of Kampala or Wakiso, the Nigeras of this world. It also draws from the relatively not well-to-do low-end settings in Kasokoso and the like. Local governments can exploit the presence of these varying communities in these entities because these varying communities are between 8 and 5 housed in one location, which can be the factory. Relationships can be established to use these factory floors as launch pads for several economic, health, even environmental initiatives, as I explained. Specifically, these settings offer several advantages. For example, for pushing out services, pushing out messages, as well as other related community matters. It's relatively easier to push out these messages using these organized businesses. It could also be an excellent point to transfer information regarding new policies to the community. Basically, it entails a local government using the company or the firm to invest in their staff, or encouraging the private enterprise to invest in their staff, who then go on to develop their communities. For example, if you access a business that has 500 or so employees, if these employees are skilled in one aspect, they can go on to develop their communities. They can take back information to their communities of what's going on, and eventually they can be very good citizens. For example, if you choose on the environmental aspects, if you as a local government, you want to roll out a tree planting campaign within the community, you could bankroll on the private enterprise. They provide the necessary skilling to their employees, who go out and plant and also encourage others to engage in the same. As such, private businesses can be a very worthwhile mobilization front for local governments. The other avenue through which lead would be realized is by way of capacity building on investments, something which private sector businesses do very well. Private businesses can provide an opportunity to showcase what is possible within a locality. For example, if you're a beverage manufacturer, if you have one in your locality, communities could be encouraged, as was mentioned by the commissioner earlier, to develop projects that feed into this beverage manufacturer. He or she might be incapacitated by the level of inputs they receive. If they are manufacturing juices, and at the moment they are able to produce, for example, 80 liters of juices per day because of their current supply, communities could be encouraged and skilled to attempt to offer the deficit that this private enterprise is facing. In this way, the manufacturer would benefit by increasing the level of production capacity at hand, while the community also benefits from such a venture through an alternative or a new source of income. As such capacity building initiatives can build on discussions between the local governments and manufacturing entities within a given vicinity. Once a local government gets to know of such a capacity challenge that a manufacturer is facing, they can be able to organize communities quite easily and appropriately to address that challenge. There are examples of where this is happening at the moment. There are examples, I'll give you an example of, it's based on a relationship engineered partly by the Uganda Manufacturers Association in Nakawa division, one of the divisions within the KCCA, where they've established a relationship that allows the division to highlight or to identify students who have graduated and need placements in manufacturing entities to be able to go and access these kinds of internship placements. And some have been very fortunate in as far as being retained at the end of such kinds of internship placements. So basically, it's the Uganda Manufacturers Association that links up with the division. It identifies the needs of the division, which is high unemployment or lack of skills. So lists the names, and this is done by the local government, of the persons that that need these services, and then the Manufacturers Association engages the various manufacturers within Nakawa division. This is operating in only one division, primarily to keep costs low. You don't want these unemployed youths moving very long distances where the transportation cost could also be an encumbrance. So that can help in alleviating a challenge within a community. However, for this to work, these relationships should be established at the insistency of the local government. So it's the responsibility of the local government to establish this relationship. Otherwise, as I note later, it might not be sustainable. The onus is on the local government to develop the relationship with the private business. As long as the focus remains more or less perceived as non-beneficial, one of these parties might not engage fully. This is inherently and precisely the private sector business in this case. They do this inherently to stop local governments from trying to figure out other ways to make their operations more challenging. On the other hand, if the focus is on creating a better environment for all parties, it creates a picture or paints a picture of we are all in this together and we are moving in the same direction. And this is considered very beneficial by private enterprises. Specifically, if my community or the locality where I'm located is doing well, and if I'm the manufacturer, they will buy my products. Hence, as a private company, I should work with this local government to build a community for all of us. Accordingly, the relationship becomes much easier for both parties. As I indicated, relationships might be harder to sustain if they were started in the other way around, if it's the private enterprise that approaches the local government. The ability to initiate this relationship could depend heavily on the caliber of staff you have at the local government. In some instances, junior staff may find it very difficult to initiate the required connection, especially if they operate in a model that is relatively traditional. You need a caliber of staff that is aligned to business development, as was indicated by the Commissioner earlier today. It's also worth noting that such relationships, once established, will only remain fruitful if they are delinked from the local politics, which in so many instances interferes with very genuine programs we have in this country. So there is a critical need to separate the local politics or the political administration from the technical team that implements these led interventions. It is easier for private businesses to engage with the local governments and implement solutions if such an environment exists. On the other hand, for led to prosper, the departments that deal with its implementation should develop a certain level of autonomy, one that we do see in several agencies that are based here at the center. If they don't develop that level of autonomy whereby a relationship has to be signed off by 6 departments to go back to the cow before it can be implemented, that could be a challenge. For example, if the challenge the local governments are having or the private sector is having with the local revenue collection department or the finance department of a local government, can the finance department address this challenge effectively without having to refer through the bureaucracy? As I come to the end, I wish to note that there is also a misalignment between the current structure, the way the local governments operate, and the way the private sector of businesses operate, specifically regarding the location of the business. Again, if you allow me to use the example of manufacturers where we've done some research in the past 1 year, the current ecosystem of location appears to operate in such a way that the factories where, or the locations where these factories are located are not in any way aligned to the local area. It's the only exception appears to be plantation related agro-processing factories, where you have a nuclear estate that has provides clinics, provides schools, and the related items. In the other settings where there are no plantations, i.e. a nucleus where to converge, the ecosystem is different. And as such, very detached from the local economy. In this such a setting, the private businesses have more connections with the central government than they have with the local government where they are resident. If a factory, for example, located in Mukono appears to have far much more regular contacts with agencies located in Kampala, then its strength and alliances are likely to be with the center than with the Mukono local government. And it also permeates in other aspects of how this relationship happens. When graduated tax was abolished, it was subsequently replaced with local service tax. With graduated tax, you had to pay it where you are operating. With local service tax, you're given the option to choose where you reside or any other location that you so choose. What that means is that you can choose to pay your tax to a different local government and leave the one that more or less provides your livelihood efficient of resources. So this kind of misalignment pushes or leads so many businesses to have very few connections in some instances with the local government where they operate. As I conclude, I wish to reiterate that for these relationships to be established and for them to work, you need a high caliber of staff located within the local government to be able to look at, or for lack of a better word, to smell this opportunity, take it up, develop it, and ensure that it is sustained without having to have just a one-off relationship through, as appears to be the case with corporate social responsibilities. Then we also have to deal with the misalignment of the incentives, whereby private businesses are responding to the incentives offered at the central government and not to the incentives that should have been offered to where they are located. So this is important because unless private businesses significantly consider that it is in my best interest to maintain a relationship with my district local government and not only with the center, they are unlikely to respond to even some of the initiatives that might have been raised or initiated by the local government themselves. With that, I wish to thank you all for God and my country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director, Research, Dr. Ibrahim Kassidie. I know we're running late, but we'll try to manage. Next is the panel discussion, and I'm going to invite my colleague, Emma Manguzi, to come and lead us through this. Emma, would you like to make some comments before you start the discussion?
Recording in progress.
Our chief guest, the Minister of Local Government, representative from the German Embassy, present here, permanent secretaries present, representative permanent secretaries who have not been able to be with us here today, ministries, departments, and agencies present at different level. Oh, hello, good. Sorry for that interruption. Representatives from the ministry who have come to join us at the launch of the National Local Economic Development Strategy, colleagues, and the fraternity of GIZ, fraternity, GIZ Today, GIZ Rise, and many other components from GIZ present here, local governments present here, private sector, development partners, colleagues from civil society organizations, colleagues from the academia, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. My name is Emmanuel Muhanguzi. I stand here to take this congregation through our next session, that is a panel of distinguished ladies and gentlemen to help us delve into the subject matter of the day, the launch of the National Local Economic Development. Colleagues, before I call upon the distinguished panelists, I want to add my voice to the many voices that have taken us through the purpose of our meeting today, it being the launch of the National Local Economic Development. I will not waste your time, because my responsibility here today is to constitute the panel here, moderate the session, listen to some few questions that will be coming from the participants here with us today, and then we have the session ended. Colleagues, I want to use this juncture and call upon Dr. Maggie Chigozi. I'm sure all of you know Dr. Maggie is a doctor. She's an industrialist. A technical advisor at the United Nations Industrial Development Organization. You know very well her, and the distinguished stewardship she provided while she headed the Ghana Investment Authority. You can see we have the right caliber person to help us get entangled in the discussion of the local economic development strategy. On this panel, I also want to introduce Dr. Dmitry Podev. Dr. Dmitry is the head of office at United Nations Development Office, and he has been entangled in the matter of development at a global, regional, and enormous level. We appreciate your presence, Dr. Dimitri. And maybe before I call up the other panelists, for our safety, I want to advise that we use the steps that have been provided. I did not take note of the steps first. I came crying here. Next on our panel is none other than Dr. Byaranga Julius, representing Private Sector Foundation of Uganda. You know very well what PSAP has been providing, the role they are playing, and as you've heard from the different presenters, private sector is one of the key actors in the promotion and dispensation of local economic development. Lastly, I want to call upon Mr. Kunihira, the other name, Geoffrey from Buyukwe District Local Government. Mr. Kunihira Geoffrey is the Chief. Kunihira Geoffrey is the Chief Administrative Officer of Buyukwe District Local Government. As you can see, local governments are a central actor in matters to do with local economic development. So with me, you can see a spectrum of the panelists and talk to the actors already explained in the different submissions that we've had today. So without wasting a lot of your time, allow me to join this committee as we begin our session. I urge you to be very good listeners and analyze the issues, because we will be expecting some questions at the end of the panelists' presentations. Thank you very much. To begin with, I should have introduced myself. My name is Emmanuel Mhanguzi. If I remember, I don't recall saying so, but anyway, for the benefit of those who might not have heard, in case I did, my name is Emmanuel Mhanguzi. I work as a Principal Development Officer at the Ministry of Local Government, Department of Local Economic Development. Our chief guest, distinguished participants, today is a very big day as we launch another milestone in the development discourse of our country. Distinguished panelists, as you ably have heard from the different speakers, this has been a long process, beginning way back in 2006 when the National Economic Development was adopted as the sixth objective in a decentralization policy. Of course, mindful of the fact that decentralization had begun way back 1990 to 94, around there. 2006, 2014, we have a national economic, local economic development policy developed. You've heard that in 2016, there was an attempt to develop a national local economic development strategy that, if I'm right, I must say that it helped, guide the very many interventions that the ministry has been implementing, development intervention the ministry has been implementing in local governments. As you've heard from the commissioner, you must have heard from the permanent secretary that there are many interventions in the development framework that the Ministry of Local Government has been undertaking in various local governments. Now, it brings us to 2019, when there was a realization that there was need to think through another strategy. Of course, bearing in mind that very many issues had cropped up, and also our development terrain had changed, culminating into the strategy we are launching today that we expect to guide, that the ministry expects to guide all the other development interventions within the ministry, but across government. You must have heard that there has been a lot of development taking place, but in a very scattered, and therefore they need to get that coordination. They need to draw on board the other actors at a community level, a local government level, and the private sector if we are to achieve the development agenda of this country. Without wasting a lot of time, having had that background, I will, maybe to guide this session, every panelist has been given 7 minutes to take us through the question that will be posed to them. Then at the end of their responses, we will entertain 4 questions from the audience. So I want to request that, request for your attention, request for your analysis, so that at the end of the day, the 4 questions come from a very well-refined process, so that we save time and we are enabled to get entangled in the strategy we are dropping today. I'll straight away go to our private sector foundation, to Dr. Julius Biarhanga. Dr. Biarhanga, you had the genesis of the work we're ending today, and I'm sure you've been part and parcel of the process of development, the process of ensuring private sector operates at the required level. There is a question posed to you, and you specifically, who coordinates policy, advocacy, and business development at PSPU, thought this was the right question. We thought you are the right person to give us your mind and insights into the subject matter of that day. The question goes, what do you consider to be the key roles of the private sector in local economic development promotion? Thank you.
Thank you so much, moderator, and Honorable Minister for Local Government, Honorable Gary Magezi, development partners, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. That's really a very important question. First of all, given the role of Private Sector Foundation Uganda in growing our private sector. First of all, for those who don't know about PSFU, PSFU is a private sector membership organization that represents 12 sectors of the economy, and about over 300 business associations in this country. And we do policy advocacy for business development, but also offer business development services directly to our business community. I want to thank the Ministry of Local Government for this led strategy, because it will enhance private sector development, this time not only at what we call the national level, but trickle down to local governments, which we believe have great potentials that haven't been tapped into in a number of cases. First of all, RED is a development process, and as rightly put by the United States and local governments of Africa, it's a tri-party partnership between local governments, the private sector, and the communities. And in this, it means the private sector, communities, and local governments are entangled with each other, and if we must achieve the strategy, the three have to closely work together. You can't leave behind one of them and expect to achieve this strategy. So, first of all, as rightly put by our keynote speaker, private sector is believed and is indeed the engine of growth, because if you want to increase incomes, which is one of the central aspects of this strategy, you need the private sector to create jobs. Similarly, if you want to widen the tax base, you also need the private sector. So without the private sector, you forget about widening the tax base. So successful businesses drive growth. As we well know, private sector contribution to Uganda's GDP is over 80%. And what that means is that you can imagine if all private sector enterprises in our local governments grew at a very terrific rate, how big our GDP as a country would be. Similarly, SMEs, just like it is in Germany, they contribute immensely to Uganda's economy and employ over 2.5 million Ugandans, and being a youthful, a large youthful population, they contribute immensely to youth employment. So at the center of most of the key aspects of key aspects of the local economic development, we look at private sector as one of the major contributors to financing services and investment in these local governments through the tripartite arrangement that I talked about, whether it has to do with the utilities, transport, and other required facilities for private sector to thrive, but also for communities to grow. Also, when you look at the aspect of economic governance, private sector-led planning and development in local communities is also a central role of private sector if we are to achieve the strategy. But also defining and operationalizing economic potentials within our local governments. Whereas local governments on the part of government have an understanding of some of the economic potentials, but the understanding cannot be as deep as the investors themselves, in this case, the private sector. So you need the private sector to not only look deeply into these investment potentials, if we are to decentralize investment, but also operationalize them. And but also private sector plays a very key role in workforce development, especially skilling, not only in running some of the skilling institutions, but also on job training for our private sector actors. For instance, at PSFU, we do this in partnership with Enabel and European Union through SG Plus project to try to use the private sector to skill our young people in governance, leadership, and other aspects of private sector development. But also inclusion of minorities. Because if we are to develop sustainable communities, cities, and local governments, then we need to look at all aspects of sustainable development, of which minorities are also central. Livelihood development, including, like I said, job creation, but also developing and creating value chains that help to develop these micro enterprises which employ majority of the people in these communities. And value chain development is one of the central aspects that we must pay attention to if we must develop the private sector in our local communities. But of course, as I conclude, to achieve this, we need to have direct government, deliberate, if I would say deliberate interventions, especially in creating enabling environment, and of course that is including the private sector, but also attracting businesses in our local governments and retaining those businesses to make sure that as they operate, they also thrive, keep existing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Very excellent insights. Distinguished panelists, our audience, as you've heard the colleague from PSFU says, all of us live in a locality, and each locality has got an economy, and every economy requires to see some transformation in terms of development. But around that spectrum, there is need for synergies drawn from the private sector. Yes, government does its work, the communities do their work, because every community has got its livelihood. But private sector comes out centrally. It's taken out through the different roles, and I'm sure there are a number of roles that might have been left out. But that is his point. I not waste a lot of your time. I think that provides you a basis to do some analysis, and maybe at some point pose some questions, because also we need to understand, yes, these are the roles they should play, but how do they play them? Or what are the facilitating factors for them to have an environment through which their support can be realized? We'll straight go with our distinguished panelist, Dr. Maggie Chikozi. Basing on your experience as a business person, a consultant in the field of medicine, as an educator, as a sportswoman, but also currently as an advisor in the area of development. What do you think are opportunities the National Local Economic Development Strategy is bringing on board, provide growth in investments, and also see that the private sector does their work best? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think you've chosen the right person. If anybody is in each and every local council, local town and local city, it is Pepsi-Cola. I don't think you go anywhere and you cannot get my drink. So yes, we are everywhere. And certainly we want to be, yes. We want to be in very good places. We want to work with communities because we are not ourselves there. We have 2 factories, but we do distribute and get to local people in these areas who then run our business and hopefully run it very, very well. So privileged to have this honor to be a part of the economic development model policy, because I think it is critical. As the Uganda Investment Authority, we worked with all the various, as many districts as we could get to try to encourage them to attract more and more business in their area. How do they do that? We wanted them to have an expert on within their structures in investment and one in trade. And I think they all did, and formed the committee that actually promotes investment in the local communities. Secondly, we encourage them to welcome new business. Yes, they are the businesses that exist. So even those ones that exist, what do they need? They need to be involved in your activities. You having the president coming to visit, do you ever remember to invite us? The answer is no, you don't. You don't, you know? We are part of you. We make you survive as local, councils. And, but we feel very, very marginalized when we are not involved. We are not invited to attend any important event that you have in your community. So they need to be involved. They need to get information. When taxes change, when you talk to us, when there's some information that is available. And when infrastructure is being made, when it's being identified, we would like to be a part. So I think Private Sector Foundation talked about it clearly. We are a partnership. We are partners. So those are the existing companies already. How about new? I know we want to grow. We need new business. So who are we welcoming and what do they need? What information does new business need? Where are the opportunities in your area? Is it agriculture? Is it mining? What is it that you know you have and you can share with us? And put it in such a way, is it on your website? Is it in a document? I know we do have a few districts that do have, investment promotion documents. So can we have access to that information, those who want to invest? Is it easy to get your licenses? Bureaucracy in this country, we've come a long way. Yes, I must say we've come a long way, especially with digital. We have come a long way, but there are still obstacles to investment. So how can I get my trading license? Very, very quickly, what are you wasting my time trying to? I need a license, you have it, give it to me. But you can imagine sometimes, it can take weeks for you to get it. So can we improve on the bureaucracy, on the technocrats that you have within that are supposed to support us? The issue of land. You have investors. I know agriculture may be difficult, they need large tracts of land, but in your city, in your town, is there an industrial park? If there isn't, Winnie is over there. They are developing industrial areas in as many cities as they can. An investor is not ready. You know how our land challenges are. To work with squatters, to fight with neighbors, you know what it is. So if you can have an industrial area, I come in and I say I need a plot, 1 acre plot, and tomorrow I have it. Within 3 months my factory will be up. But at the moment, it may take me 6 years. Okay, I'm about to finish. So the other thing they need is partnerships. Of course, partnerships with you, and maybe partnerships with other investors. So those are some of the issues that we need to work together to make it easy, both for existing investors to grow, but also for new investors. Do you want the diaspora? Do you want foreigners? Do you actually want them all? If you can attract a local investor, foreigner, diaspora, they will create jobs for your people and take you through what PSFU said earlier. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Maggie Chigozi. That is very, very informative. My colleagues, participants, I'm sure you can see serious issues coming out. But I also think need to say that the current strategy we are launching today provides a basis for solving a number of the issues that are coming out. Of course, critically at the center of it, yes, government must think about the involvement of private sector in whatever we plan, from planning, implementation, monitoring and evaluation, for us to have sustainable things happening. Centrally, through coming out is the issue of partnership. Without partnership, and I'm sure, Doctor, you must have heard, looking at the definition of the policy, with the levy policy, which the strategy is supposed to help, implement, talks about that across the stakeholders coming together to work in that regard. Of course, I am thinking of asking you another question, but you seem to be also have answered it there. That talked about how can these opportunities that the strategy is providing be best played or realized. But from your submission, many of the issues are addressed in. Let us straight away go to Dr. Dimitri from United. Sorry to say, I think I'll begin with Mr. Geoffrey Kuruhira, the Chief Administrative Officer of Igwe District, because his submission will provide a basis for the response around the question that has been prepared for you. As Maggie had indicated, you can see the composition of the panelists talks about the actors we are talking about in the local economic development discourse. And with us today is a Chief Administrative Officer of Igwe District, who is at the center of of decentralization, implementation, but also all matters to do with development. Mr. Kuruhira, you interface with communities on a daily basis. You've seen the good and the bad over the time you've been in.
Local person. I said here, and I thought when you went to Dimitri, you had already relegated me to local last. Honorable Minister and all our partners, I recognize the protocol, please. It's interesting that we have this. While the private sector is saying they are the engine, good, the vehicle is there. And my commissioner said he's the midwife, the baby is born. I am the babysitter, and I'm the driver. The local government is the driver for the change. So the engine can be there, and the car without a driver will not move. And therefore, the driver is very important in this situation. This strategy coming in place is not finding an empty ground. We have ground as local governments. The experience I have had is some 20 years ago, when I was in Mubende, before we brought back the departed Asians, Mubende district ran the Tamuteko tea factory, and we were getting revenue in the management of the tea factory, meaning there is capacity of a local government to run an investment. 2, when I went to Shema, I found Shema had circles, and the circles in Shema were richer than the district I was managing. The district was running on 13 billion. The circles in Shema had a capacity of 16 billion then, meaning the private sector on itself was stronger, or the local economy was stronger. When somebody asked, do you know your economy as a district? Yes, the important thing is, as districts, it's our role to ensure that the incomes of our citizens are bankable. 65% of our districts don't have banks, not meaning that banks which are physical, banks in relation to banking systems, which was happening in Shema and happening in Rwengo. In Rwengo, we created village circles, which raised 3 billion in a year, and were able to attract Finance Trust Bank. Finance Trust Bank opened a branch between Masaka and Liatonde, where Centenary was. Meaning, as a local government, we can be a driver. But the important thing is, it's about production and consumption. As a local government, we must be able to mobilize our citizens to produce and have a commodity on the market. And once you have a commodity on the market, you attract resources. And once you attract resources, the important thing is, many of our households are working very hard. We have not helped them on how to utilize their resources well, and how to keep money in circulation in a district. Many districts have had money, and we are depending on markets. We are depending on suppliers who come and take away the money in circulation, and the money does not go back into investments to stimulate growth within that local government. Then the other one is, most of the districts, we are looking at service facilitation, making roads, having a school which is running, a health facility which is running, but not establishing resource generating ventures. And where is this problem? The problem is in the mindset of some of our team members. Some of our team members in local government, in Shema, I bought a greenhouse. Then I told my staff, we need to make money out of this. Then the officer in charge asked me, "Cow, does government make profit?" So that kind of mindset that government does not make profit makes it difficult. You find commercial officers who will be looking at how do we create cooperative societies, but not how do we understand the cost of running a business in a local government. So in so doing, I'm looking at the positives and the negatives within the local government as a driver for transformation. Now, as a local government, what do we need?
Maybe on that point, I think it's very important that I pose this question, because I think you'll be addressing the same, so that we set some time. And therefore, what needs to be done effectively to help you effectively discharge some of these roles?
What needs to be done is already in the strategy. How do we build teams which have positive attitude, positive mindsets to transformation? 2, how do we create a leadership which is going to champion household consumption and investment? Then how do we ensure that as a local government we attract financing? How do we attract financing? How do we break through from, say, like what Arua has done? Arua has done it. We were doing it in Wakiso. that vendors can become the owners of the market if they have contributed to building the market in Wakiso Town Council. It is there. These are not new things. How can we be in charge? Like I was saying, go to Shema. Shuku, they have a circle for farmers of Matoke. And farmers of Matoke are employing people to keep their money and help them invest their money. Teachers have created a circle within the Shema town, which helps to bank money from schools and loan schools. Then we can go out and say, now we have a mega venture. Which is the mega venture? If my interest in Wigwe, can I select the right enterprise in Wigwe? If I'm in Wigwe, what is my right enterprise? Should I go digging maize? Or I'm between the two cities, Jinja and Kampala? What can I supply there? If I supply the maize and I supply the onions, which one would be a better product? So enterprise selection is very important. Or else, can't I, if I had one boarding primary school per parish, it means the day that the school opens, the local economy is flooded. The visitation day, the local economy is flooded. So can we have enterprises which are centered on increasing money in circulation and the purchasing power of the community? Hopefully I've used your time well.
Thank you very much, Jeffrey. You can see us staff coming out. You know, they need support. They are central. The ground with the foundation is there. However, they are challenged because of the many issues here as where heavily elaborated. And I think now his submission leads us to one of our distinguished panelists, Dr. Dimitri, today. Doctor, you've been at the center for a global body, United Nations Capital Development Fund, global and regional, and now in the context of Uganda. You could have interfaced with many of the issues that appear to be coming out. We have now a strategy that is supposed to help us roll out the implementation of the local economic development policy. Of course, as you know, the background duties that the government did adopt on the basis of many issues, poverty, shrinking resources coming to local governments to what they're supposed to do. High interest rates, cost of capital not being an easy one. Local government being at the center of the development all these are, because all of us live in a community as you had, all of us live in the economy, and all of us desire to see some development, variation in development across time. On the basis of the issues that I'm bringing out, what do you think are the most feasible financing options for late at central and local government levels? We have 7 minutes to take us through the issue.
Thank you so much, moderator, honorable minister, dear colleagues. UNCDF is probably not as omnipresent as PepsiCo, but we are present in quite a few local governments in Uganda. And I think the previous speaker has probably put it very well. LED, and this also links to what the commissioner said previously. LED is not a project or a number of projects. It's essentially a mindset. It is an institutional mechanism that makes local economic development possible. So before we start discussing sources of finance, we need to understand what exactly it is that we need to finance. And taking this perspective of an ecosystem, an institutional mechanism, there are quite a few areas that can readily access finance, and I mean grant finance. Let us start with healthy public financial management. There can be no local economic development finance without healthy local finances. And a lot has been done by the government and by development partners to improve that, but the potential is huge. Think about it. I'm just coming from Kenya, where I attended the Apple City Summit, and I met the Nansana mayor. Nansana municipality in a span of just 3 years, increased its revenues from 2.5 billion to 4.5 billion. This is an 80% increase. Or think about Gulu City. In approximately the same time frame, Gulu City has increased its revenues 4 times, from 250 million to 1 billion. The potential is huge. Our estimates of the local revenue potential indicate that on average, local governments can increase their own source revenues 3 to 5 times. This is a tremendous potential that must be used, and that will create a foundation for local financing of economic development. But in addition to that, and speaking further about PFM systems at the local level, it is the efficiency and effectiveness of those systems that we need to significantly increase. A study by the International Monetary Fund indicates that the losses related to inefficient investments into local infrastructure amount to 30% of the total budget. Another 30%, which we may save if only we do local investments in a smart way. And the funding for that type of interventions is readily available. A number of partners, including, of course, the World Bank that is financing World Bank and USAID as well as UNCDF that are financing an expansion, helping the government of Uganda to finance the expansion of IRAS, the Integrated Revenue Administration System, partners like UNDP and others who are contributing significantly. That is there. What we really need to do, we need to pack and introduce the request for finance in the right way that would address those critical points or those critical junctions in the operation of local governments. The second important area, which doesn't require a lot of finance, and the finance is also in principle there, is operationalization of the LOD function at both the local and central level. We all know that the capacity of local governments to deal with LOD issues is not there. And in many cases, it will never be there. It will never be there to the extent that it is required, because development of some ideas and some projects may be beyond the routine operation of local governments, and it may not make even sense to build that capacity in each and every local government. But the idea that I have been lobbying for quite some time with the Ministry of Local Government and also with the Ministry of Finance is establishment of a project preparation facility for local governments. A project preparation facility that would help local governments to develop their projects in terms of feasibility, including financial feasibility, and matchmaking them with the potential sources of capital. And the third issue is financing of LOD projects as such. Let us again make it clear that it should not be the government, or governments if you wish, who should be the main source of financing. As has been said once and again during today's event, it should be the private sector. The question is how exactly we unlock that potential. What are we doing to unlock, in particular, the banking sector for LOD? Think about the Uganda Development Bank, which has been recently, well, not so recently, 2 years ago, significantly recapitalized.
We have a minute to go.
Yes. What is it? How is UDB consciously investing in promotion of local economic development? What do we do with the banking association to help them to contribute more significantly into LOD? And the last point, access to external capital, external. There are quite a few facilities out there. One of those is International Monetary Investment, International Municipal Investment Fund, which is supported by UNCDF, which I represent. It has just issued a call for proposals, aiming or targeting projects that seek equity investments through public-private partnerships. It's open, it's online, and it can be accessed. We have a local climate adaptive living facility which will be launched in 2 days, the day after tomorrow, with the support of the Ministry of Local Government, as well as the Ministry of Water and Environment. And how we can unlock, this is a system of discretionary grants to local governments, how that potential can be unlocked, what local governments can do themselves, and this leads me back to the issue of operationalizing the LED function, how they can integrate LED considerations into those grants. So again, the point is that those other external sources of finance are there, and they should be tapped into, but this requires a better capacity.
Thank you, Doctor. As you heard, there are quite a number of options, both at local level, regional and global level, within ourselves. But the most important thing is us first appreciate the ecosystem within which we operate. And LED calls for mobilization of the local sources first, how we manage the resources, and many other things around it. I think you've been, spot on. I think I have close to private sector. Of course, with me I have Dr. Maggie Kigozi and Dr. Biarhanga. Dr. Maggie, we've heard that the private sector, for us to achieve local economic development, private sector must be brought on board in a number of ways, right from the beginning to the end. Local governments, I think over the years since the levy was adopted, have tried to work with private sector in some of the areas. For example, projects to do with agro-industrialization, value addition. And along now, I think there are issues that have been observed in terms of the ethics around how private sector operates. What is being done at your level in the context of private sector? Maybe this should be paused. I'll give you a minute and also give him a minute to get into your mind, see what you're doing towards preparing, organizing a private sector for an engagement of this level. A minute, Doctor. I'll come to you after she has made her presentation.
Yes, private sector generally have been trained, and we have the SDG facility, the Enterprise Uganda. So a lot of training of the private sector, corporate governance has been happening, and I think many of them already know how they should be running their companies. But now they come in to interface with the local councils. URA has learned how to work with them, they've learned how to, here at the central, now they find themselves in some up-country place interfacing with the local councils, which may not be as advanced as, URA and others who are now fully digitalized. So there is that challenge of, partners maybe who might be unequal. They may try maybe to, we are here to make money, so if they can make money, they will want to. But it is important, and we have made an effort to do corporate governance. They should understand, partnerships and how they work with local governments. And they should be able to know how to run their business. Again, that has been done even for local investors. Many of them have been trained by the various institutions in the country, so they know how to run their business. And what they need is a facilitator, not a boss, not somebody who orders them around. What they require is somebody who makes it easy. You want land, it is here. So you want a partner, we do have some people here. So that is the kind of support that private sector needs from local councils.
I think the issue is coming out clearly. Doctor, can you give us your mind in 20 seconds? We are losing time.
Thank you so much. I will quickly add to what Dr. Maggie talked about. But also what, for instance, we are doing at PSF is trying to develop value chains through the Lead Farm model, and we are doing this in partnership with the MasterCard Foundation, empowering bigger enterprises to bring even small micro enterprises into to also tap into big markets, but also offering the business development services like was rightly put by Dr. Maggie. So that way you're able to reach even a small scale producer in a local government, and that producer is also able to access a bigger market, for instance, under the FCFTA arrangement, but also within the ESC and other markets that we engage in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you're very clear, loud and clear. I want to go to our audience, but I want to modify the rules slightly. We're meant to have 4 questions coming from our audience, but I would advise that we have 2, both from male and female, in the interest of gender balancing, so that we are able to move to the next session, because time seems to be running away from us. Yes, I expect 2 hands, a female and a gentleman. Yes, our lady from Uganda Investment Authority.
Honorable Minister, I want to adapt the protocol that was ably done at the beginning. Mine is not a question, but mine is an excitement. I come from Uganda Investment Authority, representing the Director General, who is very excited about this. Local economic development is critical to the growth of this country. And Uganda Investment Authority, in the same line, has redesignated the small and medium division to the domestic investment division, where domestic looks at the East African region, but our strategic alignment to NDP3 over this time is to look at how to facilitate the local investor. And to do that, we are adapting and on strengthening monitoring and evaluation through learning and digital projects. We are at the advanced stage of launching the SME portal, which is the marketplace for the local investor. We are pre-testing currently, and today it's very significant that we are developing the module for local investment, local government investment and enterprise profiling module. So that critically goes into the lead, and we are extremely excited. But let me just speak on what Dr. Maggie said.
Use the next 20 seconds.
Yeah, the district investment committees are active, and that sits with the COW. And it is a public-private partnership, because you have 4 members of the local government and 5 private sectors actively engaging. Secondly, we need to look at decentralizing incentives so that people, investors begin to take advantage of what government has put in place by way of industrial parks. There's industrial land, 25 regionally, and there's an industrial bank that the local governments have been able to identify. So I think this is spot on, and we look forward to this engagement. Thank you.
Thank you.
We need a walk all way.
There was a hand gentleman in the green tie. And there was another, I think I was slightly modified, and then a question from the table on my left. After, let us use 30 seconds, please. If you're submitting a question to a panelist, I hope you call the name. Just positively straight person.
Thank you, moderator. Mine is a general question. First of all, I'd like to appreciate the ministry for coming up to this strategy, because as local governments, we don't seem to have appreciated local economic development. And therefore, integrating it into our activities has not taken shape. My concern is that we are launching this strategy, but the Minister of Lands is not involved here. We have had a development of businesses, factories, and what have you, without guided development. I would like to find out if within the strategy, we have included an aspect of planning. That the entire country should be planning. That investors, when they come, we have to direct them. Thank you very much.
Your name and me?
My name is Jackson Osudo. I am representing Gunston, Barabani County Road.
Thank you for that question. Maybe if I may attempt to respond to it. I think we have the Ministry invited the Ministry of Lands. I don't know if we have any participants from Ministry of Lands, but what I know is that the strategy provides for all MDAs, specifically in the line of development. So I think that is catered for. And with us, of course, we have one of the cows from the districts. Maybe you give us some mind about that. I want to clarify a bit also. There's a gentleman coming from our colleague just right there.
Yeah.
Just make it very, very brief.
Very brief. Good morning. My name is Palani Mira. I'm from UNDP. First of all, I want to congratulate the government and also the government corporations for this bringing out very comprehensive national strategy on the local economic development. Congratulations to those who prepared this one. My question is actually, given that the local economic development, the Paris development model, have a similar objective, a similar expected outcome, so how actually on the way forward are you going to implement the local economic development as a kind of an approach, as a strategy? How that would be different than the Paris development model implementation strategy? Because in my view, the Paris development model seems to be a bit more integrated, more comprehensive, more new. Is there any way this local economic development approach or strategy could be implemented in a much more integrated manner along with the Paris development model, or alternatively the local economic development could be also integrated as part of the Paris development model? Because even that the Paris development model is it's a more integrated, comprehensive, even the same objective. I'm not sure how if the same ministry going to implement in a more parallel way these two different approaches and strategy. So that's the question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe for the benefit of the audience, he's posing a very fundamental question. He wonders, or inquires, he wants to know what is the nexus between local economic development, which is what you are launching today, and the Paris development model, that is one of our newest hits on the globe. Maybe I will ask Mr. Bola Charles, who has been at the forefront of developing this strategy, to use 1 or 2 minutes, to use a minute and 20 seconds to provide that response so that we move to the next item.
Okay, I'll just try and speak up loud at the risk of keeping my voice low. I appreciate that question, and indeed you have said parish development model is actually quite elaborate. In its sense, as you probably heard from the definition, LED is a process that brings together stakeholders in local economic development, local governments, private sector, and community for purposes of harnessing, managing resources that are there. Now, PDM actually takes LED to the next level in terms of getting LED implemented at the lowest local government level. If you look at the tiers of local governments, you'll appreciate, if you look at let me take the district, for instance. The district would be one. The district, you have sub-counties, you would parishes, and parishes down to the villages. Now the PDM comes at that level of the parishes, which is a very critical level, and as by the design, that is a last mile effort, really, to cause development at the level. However, I'm told the online isn't picking me. So in a way, there is no mismatch or disconnect between the PDM and LED. PDM is actually operationalizing or bringing to life lead at that very level of the parish. And by way of whatever, again, knowing lead is bottom up. I should have said that lead is bottom up. That's the starting point. So whatever we are doing should start from down and collectively move up. So if you're talking of industries at the district, where do industries get their raw materials? If you do not stimulate production right, at the villages and the parishes, then the businesses right in the districts are not going to have raw materials. So that is really the connect, and there is nothing really very distant in between the two. Thank you.
Yeah, the first person you had requested is here, and 1 or 2 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Please.
My name is Michael Tebere. Here I'm the technical advisor for LED in the CRUDEP program, and my colleague and counterpart in the RISE program, Thomas Ajadi, is with me here. And we are happy because today, under one roof, we have Uganda Investment Authority and the LED department. And both are doing as much as possible to get LED done in the district. We as technical advisors on the ground, and I'm sure our cow would agree with me, we find a challenge because we have so many committees to work with for getting LED done. We have the District Investment Committee, then at the same time we also have the District LED Committee. Both committees have membership drawing from the same offices. Both committees have similar roles and responsibilities. We would be happy then if the LED department and UIA can sit together so that it eases the cow's work and our work with them in the district if these two committees are merged into one more effective committee. So that at least we have enough working days for the committees we need in the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tebela. I think your question is quite clear. And maybe before even consulting the commissioner, I think the strategy that has been put in place is meant to address that discoordination, the scattered way of doing things, because all of us are focusing on the same thing. All of us are focusing on problem. UIA does things, it solves problem. The same applies to the ministry, the same applies to the other agencies also. So what we are talking about is the strategy. And I'm happy because somebody asked about the nexus between local economic development and the current parish development model. Maybe for your information, the PDM is anchored in the LED policy. So it's one way of also actualizing implementation of the policy. So they are not two different things. There is no disconnect in between. Because all of us are looking at what that can be done to address the plight of our people, to change the poverty levels, to change the unemployment levels, to change the welfare of our people in a positive way. Maybe we need also to bring in on board, I've just picked 2 issues that are coming out from the participants online. Sorry if we had left you out. There are 2 issues that are coming out. One is submitted by Ms. Isaac Alele. Alele says, I totally agree with the Chief Administrative Officer of Ukraine. He says, when local governments take the driver's seat and strategically engages with the private sector, actualizing local economic development becomes a reality. So you can see, they are saying, the private sector says, want to be central in this engagement. The local governments who are at the cornerstone of government work at the local level says, don't leave us out, don't leave us out. MDAs at your level, don't just conceptualize, think about plans without bringing them on board. The private sector, even when you have things to do with local government, please ensure that we work as a team, collectively, synergizing is very important in here. Then Professor Magnus Amagilionu says, I think the local governments may be handicapped by the lack of resources. He puts in bracket, knowledge, human, finance, and time to drive the implementation currently. There may be need to invest in capacity building for both the local government staff and private sector personnel, equip them adequately. I think these are fundamental things, and I'm sure that this distinguished panelists here brought out the issues clearly. From financing option, Dr. Dimitri was very spot on. Available opportunities, how we can get in there. Private sector says, yes, this is how best we can work with you to roll out the development all of us desire. In the interest of time, I want to end our session here.
The chairman, commercial officers, wanted to say.
Can you use 10 seconds? Because you're running out of time.
Thank you very much. So, my just request. Since the strategy has been launched here at a national level, in order for this local government to appreciate, we need to ensure that each local government can develop a ready strategy. And this ready strategy should also be in the local government development plans, such that they can be able to work with the private sector, build those relationships very well, and also orient our cows and the town clerks, the counting officers, to understand and appreciate this. Secondly, we need to see that the office of commercial officers is enhanced, especially in terms of orientation.
Thank you very much. I think your points are coming out clearly. I want to give a minute to Mr. Kunhira Geoffrey to give a response to the question, but also give his thought on the issue.
Yeah, I'm very grateful, and I want to appreciate my colleagues who have raised the issues. Tororo, you are the chairperson of the Physical Planning Committee. Why did you start crying out to ministry plans? The Land Act and the Physical Planning Act gave you authority to take jurisdiction under your area, coordinate well, and direct the industries. You only seek support, but the first mandate on directing where industrialization should go is within our authority as local governments. Secondly, my colleague in the commercial services, just wake up. I created a strategy for a district-based strategy. By 2015, in Ruengo, we had a strategy. By 2015. So as I read this strategy, I'm revising what I created in the other side. By 2015, we had started acquiring land for investment in the Ruengo. In Wakiso by last year, our strategy for this budget this year was Wakiso should buy land. For us, by the issues, we should not encourage industries. Other people can have industries. We want warehouses in Wakiso. Those who have industries, come. So the issue is, let's go back as local governments and we own the strategy. And once you put the strategy in place, attract investment. The money you are asking central government to give you, we will not even ask for it. The money is there once we take charge of our business as local governments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that response. I think the ground is already set. So what we need is throw out. If you've not had a strategy as local governments, there is a reference point now. And maybe I think the Department of Local Economic Development and the Ministry has already set the foundation. We are supporting local governments to prepare their late strategies. Now that we are launching this strategy, it makes the ground very fertile and easy for us, to start from. So I think your fears should be really arrested. I don't want to waste a lot of time because we already past time. However, I want to acknowledge the very, very significant issues that have come out from the audience, our distinguished panelists. Dr. Mike Gozi, you are very spot on. Dr. Dimitri, you brought out the issues. You have given us insights into where to tap finances from and how to go about it. The cow, real quick, Mr. Geoffrey Kunhira has, given us a picture about the current situation in local government, but also the roles they need to play if we are to move forward in the engagement of local economic development. I want to thank Dr. Viranga for those very, very critical insights that you've given us around the ecosystem of private sector and how we can work together so that our localities, economies, and development is achieved. I want to end here by thanking all of you, acknowledge your contributions, the issues that have come out, that enrich even a forward march into the dispensation of local economic development. I end the session here. Thank you very much.
Yes.
No more threats. You're welcome. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you so much, the panelists and all those who contributed and those who listened in, including our guests who are online. We are running an hour late, so may I invite Mr. David Lowy to make his remarks, please. You're most welcome.
Thank you so much. Honorable Minister of Local Government, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Water and Environment, Director of the Ministry of Local Government, distinguished guests of the other MDAs present here, representatives of the local governments present, representatives of the private sector and civil society, development partners, and of course representatives of German Development Corporation, ladies and gentlemen. Well, good morning, or better said, good afternoon to all of you. And well, thanks a lot for having me at the launch of Uganda's national strategy for local economic development. Well, my name is David Löw. I'm the Deputy Head of Development Corporation here at the German Embassy. And I would like to send you greetings from our ambassador, Matthias Schauer, who unfortunately is not able to be here with us today. Well, it is with great pleasure that we are here today to attend on the launch of the LED strategy. Well, I note that the strategy is premised on the NDP 3, the Local Economic Development Policy of 2014, and other policy frameworks for private sector development and poverty eradication. I also note that the strategy comes at a time when the Ugandan government is intensifying efforts for domestic revenue mobilization, and local economic development efforts seek to increase employment opportunities, household incomes, and ultimately generate the much needed government revenue to support the government's ability for proper service delivery. Economic development is a complex, very complex undertaking. It takes time and requires the support of a multitude of stakeholders to yield fruits. I'm aware that support towards LED promotion in Uganda has and must even more become a highly concerted effort of many different actors, both national and local, both public and private. Therefore, I regard it important to have a strategy, to have this LED strategy, to create a shared understanding of good LED practices amongst MDAs, local governments, the private sector, civil society, to promote effective LED planning, coordination and implementation. For example, with a view to fostering public-private partnership and private sector-driven economic development. Uganda is blessed with an abundance of resources. Agriculture is the cornerstone of Uganda's economy. The sector provides ample opportunities for income generation and employment in rural areas, especially for the youth. It employs almost 70% of the population and contributes roughly 23% to Uganda's GDP. The Ugandan government is focusing on agro-industrialization to enhance the competitiveness of Uganda's export commodities, an approach I would like to commend. Yet, there are still challenges from the market to the farm and the other way around. There's especially a need for a further improved environment for the private sector. There's the need for easier access to finance, for an expansion of rural infrastructure, or strengthened land tenure security. While the government at national and subnational level can provide this enabling environment, it is up to the private sector, to invest in these opportunities. Germany is a long-standing and committed partner of the Ugandan government, while our partnership spans over 50 years of both technical and financial cooperation. The current support areas, as we've heard already, include agriculture and rural development, renewable energy and energy efficiency, as well as support to refugee hosting communities, good governance, human rights, public finance management, and job creation. In these areas, we also focus our work on the improvement of framework conditions, both national and subnational level. And this is also why German Development Cooperation, through GSZ, supported the Ministry of Local Government in developing this national LED strategy. And I very much appreciate this good cooperation that we have with the Ministry of Local Government. And of course, I would also like to congratulate the Ministry to this launch. And in the next step, German cooperation will support the Ministry of Local Government in developing a regional LED strategy, specifically targeting the districts of West Nile, the refugee hosting areas. But let me turn back to the national LED strategy. Let me highlight 5 key issues. Well, firstly, the idea of the strategy to ignite local resources strongly underlines the aspect of ownership at all levels. Experience shows that ownership plays a key role not only in successful implementation, but also in ensuring the sustainability of the measures adopted. I'm hopeful that MDAs, local governments, the private sector, civil society and the communities involved will strongly embrace ownership of the strategy and the activities arising from it. Secondly, bringing about LED through partnership is crucial for the success of the strategy. The strategy is an overarching framework for LED implementation. Achieving its goals and objectives will require strong collaboration and coordination amongst the different stakeholders at the national and subnational level. The Ministry of Local Government will have to play a key role in facilitating this coordination. And at the same time, it is of huge importance that the Ugandan government harnesses and uses the already existing efforts at LED implementation. Of course, also those of development partners, such as the European Union or Germany. Thirdly, climate change is a reality. Uganda contributes very little to it, yet climate change will be, and already is, affecting Uganda especially hard. And Germany is committed to support Uganda in adapting to the negative effects climate change brings along. And I urge all LED stakeholders to thoroughly integrate climate change adaptation and mitigation measures into their initiatives. Fourthly, there's a need for effective documentation and dissemination of good LED practices. The success of the LED strategy very much also depends on sound monitoring and evaluation of actions, as well as on a reporting system that is digital, accessible for decision-making and planning, and that is serving as an accountability tool for all stakeholders. Finally, the broad interventions in this strategy need to be further developed into viable projects that can attract funding from a variety of stakeholders. Therefore, the design of these projects should ensure inclusivity of all key actors. I also would like to call upon the different stakeholders to identify areas in the strategy that they can support. I understand that the strategy we are about to launch is the result of a thorough consultative process, which took about 3 years to mature. Of course, this process also was affected by the restrictions COVID-19 brought along. I would like to thank the Ministry of Local Government, who spearheaded this process, and all the stakeholders who participated in it. And once again, congratulate Uganda to today's launch of the National LED Strategy. As a basis for its successful and concerted implementation, and that the strategy, I hope that this, and once again congratulate Uganda to today's launch of the National LED Strategy. I hope that today's event is sparking support toward gathering everyone around the national LED strategy as the basis for its successful concerted implementation, and that the strategy will help promote Uganda's economic development. And Germany remains very committed to support Uganda in this endeavor. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Deputy Head of Program. I'll pass on the microphone to the Director to invite the Minister, because protocol wouldn't allow me to invite the Minister in this case.
Thank you, MC. I've given you the permission to invite the Minister. Honorable Minister of Local Government, Honorable Raphael Mwajezi, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all to observe. In the interest of time, I don't have to go through everything that I went through in the morning. Prime Minister, when you came in, I had already presented remarks from the PS. I've given you a copy, and in the interest of time, I don't want to go through them again. My role is very simple. Just to invite you to talk to the audience here. But maybe just four things that I thought maybe I would raise as we leave this meeting to think on again. 99% of the population is in subsistence way of life. How does this led help us to address that percentage? 2, mindset and attitude has been mentioned time and again. And as we go to implement it, can we always remind ourselves that be about those people that I'm talking about? How do we address that we want to achieve? 3, when we are operating lead, in the interest of time, I don't have to give an example. From 30,000 feet and come to 3 feet, where we can see clearly the quality. Strategy. It's my real launch the national strategy on local economic development.
Your Excellencies, the ambassadors and high commissioners, particularly the representative of the German embassy here present, the GIZ country director, the UNCDF, and representatives of other development agencies and partners here present, the permanent secretaries or their representatives, senior managers and staff of the Ministry of Local Government and other ministries and departments and agencies of government, representatives of the local governments who may be here. I've seen our chief administrative officers, the head of the commercial officers, and other staff of the local governments, representatives of the business sector, the private sector. Allow me to recognize especially our beloved Dr. Maggie Chigozi. Nice to have you in our midst. The academia and researchers, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests here present. On behalf of the Minister of Local Government and the government, allow me to strategy for lead LED is dear to me because a few years back, while pursuing my PhD at one of our universities here, you know, when you are doing your thesis, supervisors. So I see local economic development as my focus for the thesis. And I was looking at how this would boost our national and local economy. I submitted my proposal. I had professors, and unfortunately both of them rejected it. And they said, we don't understand what you're talking about. What is this one now? Up to now I'm still trying to convince them that it is a strong policy, strategy for the economy, that it works, that it can be measured, and we can develop parameters and indices to show its impact on the economy at the national and local level. I will report to you when I succeed eventually. But today we're here to launch the 2021-22 to 24-25 National Strategy for Lead. Gladly it comes at a time when we have a better understanding of our economy in terms of how it applies at the local level. The country's GDP results show that as a country, we have made great strides towards our goal of transitioning to middle income status. More so, we had to launch this strategy at a time when we are also rolling out the parish development model, and which is a key task of the Ministry of Local Government in terms of implementation. LED began as a concept introduced by the UNCDF on their work on decentralization in 2003. It was fully conceptualized in 2005, drawing examples from South Africa and other models, and it was recommended for implementation at the Joint Annual Review of Decentralization. And I'd like to acknowledge the big contribution of the then Permanent Secretary, Mr. Patrick Mtabire. LED was seen as an effective strategy that would help us to further deepen decentralization, hasten the pace of eradication of poverty, promote inclusiveness, sustainable and equitable economic growth, particularly at the local level. LED supports the country's strategy of implementing private sector-led economic interventions. It should help us to tackle unemployment, it should help the local governments to generate their local revenues and to deliver better services to the population. In 2007, with the help of the Belgian Technical Corporation, we developed our first national LED strategy. And in 2014, Cabinet adopted the National Local Economic Development Policy to set the foundation for implementing LED. I'm glad that we're here now to launch the second strategy with the theme reigniting local resources for self-help. It is important because it recognizes Uganda's endowment with abundant natural resources. It stresses the need for this to be harnessed sustainably for the benefit of the current and future generations, while ensuring inclusive growth models that leave nobody behind. We must therefore embrace this thinking of partnership between the private sector, the local government, and the community, so that we hasten growth at the local level. Pursuing the path to industrialization will increase the country's resilience, transform the lives of the people through better incomes and gainful jobs, and strengthen our regional and international competitiveness. The LED policy defines local economic development as a process through which local governments, the private sector and communities form partnerships to mobilize, manage and invest resources effectively into economic ventures so as to stimulate development and growth of the localities. That is therefore very important to the country. It should enable our economy to generate more jobs, more wealth, and promote inclusivity as we develop. Local governments are right at the center of all social and economic development initiatives, and therefore must influence the structure and direction of the local economics if our country is to achieve its goal of increased household incomes and improved quality of life of Ugandans. The private sector have their own expectations and contributions. These have been elaborated during the discussions here. Especially, they want an easy way to do business. Their aim is profit, our aim is public service, but the target is the same person. And the private sector are asking us as local governments, make it easier for us to operate at the local level. What does this mean? This calls for a paradigm shift in the way the local governments do business and perform in terms of services. We're talking of local governments that can facilitate business-oriented locality development with a focus on poverty reduction, sustainable wealth and job creation. It means that local governments are expected to drive the economy of their localities. With this comes both challenges and opportunities in respect of making a real difference on the lives of the people. Local governments working in partnership with businesses particularly present a great opportunity to create sustainable local development. I look at the next 3-4 years with a parish model, with LED and other initiatives in government. And I reflect on the question that was asked, where do we interface LED and the parish development model? And therefore, what should we stress in terms of implementation of LED? I look at integration. I look at complementarity. I don't look at anything in terms of fighting each other. The stress is on our households, enabling transition or transformation from the subsistence to the monetary economy. That's where we are heading to. Therefore, I'd like to stress the following points as we implement the LED and parish model together in terms of synergies, terms of areas where if I were a partner wanting to support government or support local government, where would I put my focus? The Commissioner stressed these areas, but I'd like to put them a little more succinctly. Number one, capacity building. We're talking of a new area of interface between the local government and the private sector. We'll need a lot of training, a lot of support in developing the lead project information facilities at the district level. Number two, developing the agricultural value chain. It's been pointed out, and the representative of the ambassador of Germany has said that the biggest part of our population depends on agriculture. So we need to emphasize production, productivity, adding value to the products, industrialization, storage, transportation and marketing, both within and outside. If you can support this, then we should be able to talk of local economic development. Thirdly, a special area of tourism development and investment, because we have a comparative advantage in relationship to other countries, both in terms of our flora, fauna, and the population. This country has a lot of potential. Tourism could actually be the niche for Uganda to develop faster than we are doing at the moment. Number four, digitalization of the local government services and revenues. We're not going to continue talking of working with the private sector if we ourselves as local governments have serious shortages in terms of our local revenues. But it has been demonstrated that it's possible indeed to grow by 3, 4, 5 times if we improve using IDAS, IFMS and other facilities and systems, because you need a strong partner at the local level. You as a business, you need a strong partner in the local government. We know where we are strong: in governance, in legislation. We have the land, we have the technical staff, we have the decentralization policy. I want to highlight this issue of digitalizing our service delivery and our revenues, so as to build a portfolio for partnership with the private sector. Number 5, strengthening the monitoring and evaluation, as well as accountability under the lead. We must emphasize outputs, results. So if somebody can look into the framework for M&E and accountability under the lead and the parish model, and you see how to enhance it, how to ensure that we are able to trace where we came from, where we've reached and where we are going. That will be a very big support and input. Number 6, it has been emphasized, the issue of mindset change, the need to sensitize ourselves, the leaders, as well as the communities. We need a mindset positive for transformation at all levels, including the private sector and the local government. One time we had a meeting and a colleague minister said, "But you, Raphael, you belong to local government. For you, you operate down there, you are local." I turned local into local. Local is like stay there. We need to change the mindset of Ugandans in terms of how we work together, in terms of how we harness our potentials, in terms of the responsibility to transform to the next stage of a middle-income country. And that ground is bounty. You can invest in it at any level, right from the cabinet, parliament, the district leadership, to the private sector forum, up to the community. Number 7, infrastructure development. If you're talking of a private company, business, going to operate down in Chamunga in my village, they'll ask for internet connectivity, they'll ask for community access roads, they'll ask for insurance, they'll ask for electricity, they'll ask for water. They want the base set for them to invest in our localities. So we have to tighten the belt as local authorities. Don't just call people and say, I have land, I want to invest here, you come. No. People will ask you, how is your network in terms of roads? How assured am I of the water flow into my industrial factory? How reliable is the internet connectivity? We have electricity and so on. Number 8, building strong networks. It's another area of investment. Networks between the private sector and the local governments. Networks between the local governments and the communities. And between the private sector and the community. So we shall need to continue to dialogue. This is just the beginning. We are launching, and we shall see a set of engagement, opportunities and activities. We need to build information digital platforms to ease our networks. We need to make it easy for the private sector to access information that we have in local government. And if anybody wants to invest, this is a fertile area. I have this factory I want to put up. I don't have the information on the raw materials, on the consumption levels of the community, on the licensing, and so local governments, we must find a way of strengthening our resolve to network with the private sector. If I want to open a shop, I want to open a supermarket, why is it taking me a whole month to be able to do that? A commercial officer, you're here. And I want you to engage your colleagues on the role of the commercial officer in promoting this interface between local authority and the private sector. I wish Uganda could be registered as a country where, at least at the local level, access to business and access to information is first class. You want to learn? Where is the land? You want a license? How long is it taking? You want a market? Where do I find it? You want a school for your children? Is it available? So we need to continue reflecting on this one. How to bring the lead to bear on our capacities as local authorities to attract and maintain businesses in our localities. Number 9 is physical planning, especially for our new cities and municipalities. This includes solid waste management. It includes provision of spaces for parks, industrial parks, recreation parks, investment zones in the cities that we are building. We're ready to work with Ministry of Lands in this so that we build cities that are well planned. We minimize stress in our cities. You know, you want to build the street, but if you build it only for 2-3 years, not mindful of the increase in the volume of traffic on your street and the increase in population. Uganda is a very fertile country in terms of population growth. Tomorrow you'll face a problem of congestion on your streets. So we must do physical planning. There is no alternative. We cannot talk of getting into the middle income state, and yet we move with towns which are not well planned. So where do you support LED? Support us in making sure that we build cities that are well planned. Not just having a plan on paper, but in terms of even implementation and enforcement. Number 10, social services in our localities. Ensuring that not just the parish, but even now to the village, we have facilities for health, hygiene and sanitation at the household level, education, housing, and a well-managed environment. Climate change is a reality in our country, and if we want to attract investors at the locality, then we have no alternative. We must make sure that we protect the environment. And we have good and affordable housing, provide good quality schools, and ensure that the health centers are vibrant and providing the necessary services. Number 11, building local financial institutions to promote local businesses and local enterprise organization and management. Under the parish model, we are focusing on a circle at the parish. But for me, the name is not the issue. We're saying at the community level, how far do I go to access financial services? If I want to save the little money I've made in my business, where do I put it so that it is secure? And if I want to borrow some money to invest in my business, what is the percentage? How easy is it for me? So it's good to invest in this one. Local economic development, the partnership between the private sector and local communities will be strengthened by vibrant finance institutions and mechanisms and access to credit. And finally, led at the regional level, building or investing in regional and sub-regional led platforms. Just this week, I think on Friday, we'll be in Busoga for the Busoga Development Consortium. I've interfaced with the Northern Uganda Development Forum, and I'm glad that JZ, CDF, and others are helping us in West Nile, in the West Nile strategy. Why is this important? These districts have commonalities, and it's easy to generate opportunities that come with bigger facilities. So it may be good to look at not just implementing LED using the Secretariat and the Ministry, but helping the country to have or to focus on regional, local economic development platforms or strategies. I think for me this would help then the districts, and then the districts support the sub-counties and further downwards. For us to be successful in this, we have to, especially I'm looking at our local governments. Number one, we need to improve coordination. There are several programs and initiatives of government and the private sector. We have the Myoga, we have the parish model, we have LED, we have local development plans and so on. we need to be coordinated. We need to make sure that the Secretariat strengthen coordination so that nobody gets lost. Also to make sure that this kind of engagement continues in a planned manner and people are able to know after this then what next. So I'm urging the Secretariat to strengthen coordination. We also need to activate and strengthen the district platforms, including the district-led teams and the district investment committees, and to make sure that these district fora do integrate and include the private sector. We need to identify local investment opportunities and incentives and to build local investment portals which are at the district level. In conclusion, let me thank the government of Germany for the consistent support you have given Uganda over the last 50 years. Because of organizations like GIZ, that Uganda has made decisive progress in economic development and poverty reduction. I wish to call on all our development partners to support implementation of this led strategy. And I've taken my time to highlight 12 areas where we can really work together. Of critical importance is led capacity development and establishment of a robust information technology, enabling a clear and transparent monitoring and evaluation system. I've highlighted other areas of support, which include specific projects of lead, especially in the agriculture value chain, because these have a broader reach and impact on poverty eradication drive of the country. We look forward to continued collaboration in promoting the local economic development strategy. Thank you so much. It is now my singular honor to launch the Uganda National Strategy for the Local Economic Development 2021-22, 2024-25. I'm told there is a signing ceremony. So partners, please join me as we execute that function, the official signing of the led strategy on the board. Thank you so much for coming. God bless you. Wishing you the best of the day. Thank you.
Now that the baby is due for delivery, let me invite Dr. Namara, the commissioner. After a long while, I'm going to ask the commissioner led to lead us through this signing ceremony. Our guests, we will have a good photograph after the signing ceremony. We'll have one with the guests are going to sign with the minister, and then all of us here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. MC. The Honorable Minister is going to hold the pair of scissors and cut the umbilical cord of our baby. And we're going to count 3 years. That is from somebody on this side. So 2021, 2025. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me request now the Honourable Minister to sign off the strategy.
Am I supposed to sign?
Anyway.
Right.
But where it is visible. Oh, give me a clap. Let me request the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Local Government, to append his signature. Let me request the representative of the Ambassador of Germany to append his signature. This is historical indeed. Country Director GIZ, please.
Thank you very much.
Be a witness to this very important function. Let me request Gina, please, touch your baby.
I'm very happy to yes, we invited the white somebody needs to be
Can I request Kao Uyukwe to step forward and append his signature?
Therefore, for Kao.
Let me request Dr. Maggie Chigozi, who is here representing the private sector, to append her signature as well. Uganda Investment Authority, please bear witness. Private Sector Foundation, it's your turn. Let me request Minister of Agriculture to step forward.
European Union?
Yes, sure. Please.
European Union, UNDP, you are online.
No, UNDP is over there.
UNDP? Then for now, finally, the Department of Local Economic Development.
We will then have a group photograph. First, with the minister and the guests who have signed. Can we have a group photo, please? Where's Nancy? No.
Can we have it down?
We will have a good photograph after this one. I hope all of you contribute to raising the baby as we vibrate. Can we please join in the group photograph now? All of us, please. Others can. Thumbs down. Kindly join having exercise group photograph.
I believe so, yes.
Kindly join the group program. And I request those who have the cameras to guide us if we are all in focus.
Come and see us.
What's smiling?
I thank you so much. All of you for coming up, and our guests who have been online. Once the minister leaves, we all leave at leisure, please. I thank you. That's why I say, after here, once the minister leaves, then leave at leisure. We will have the anthems. Kindly, we have the anthems.
Afrika Mashariki, tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu, yetu sote tuilinde, tuwajibike, tuimarike, umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, ili tudumu jumuiya yetu. Uzalendo pia mshikamano iwe msingi wa umoja wetu, na tulinde uhuru na amani, mila zetu na desturi zetu, bendera yetu sote tuilinde, tuwajibike, tuimarike, umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, ili tudumu jumuiya yetu. Iwe ndani na hata mashambani, tufanye kazi sote kwa makini.
Thank you so much, and have safe travels.
Yes, thank you very much. You have been watching us live on HIT TV. I am Sankara Garuhanga. Yes, we've been coming to you live from Protea Hotel, Kampala. And well, the Mulamwa of the day was actually all about making sure local communities also take part in contributing to development. We are talking about local economic development, and we are looking at how you actually, who is out there, could contribute to development from wherever you are. The strategy that Uganda is going to be moving with. This comes at a time when actually the president just addressed the country regarding the economic crisis that the country is going through, and there seems to be no solutions or actually immediate kind of interventions that the government is actually considering to consider. However, of course, he advised the nation to make sure they minimize expenses, but also spend to things they believe are actually made in Uganda. And I think that statement very well correlates with what has been actually launched today. Now, in case you joined in when it was actually perhaps ending, you need to be sure that the LED project, the purpose is actually to enhance and stimulate investments and opportunities that promote sustainable economic growth within territorial local governments, as well as to increase household incomes. Now, the ultimate aim of this project is actually to reduce poverty and also improve people's incomes and livelihoods, and enhance improved services and service delivery through increased local government revenues. And the strategy believes the local gentleman or lady has a lot to contribute to such economic growth. We should be able to talk to the commissioner of the project very, very shortly to expound more a little bit on this, especially for you who just joined us before. Later we should be able to ask a few questions also in case you have some. We saw the Minister for Local Government, Honorable Raphael Majesi, addressing and gave a few points, around 12 of them, as key to what may actually influence the success of this project. And one of them, of course, one that we cannot miss out, he says the ministry and all partners on board have to embrace the mindset change within communities, because he believes that is what is going to drive this. Talking about mindset change, you want to believe that government has actually put several strategies, and the communities tend to believe it's always copy and paste here and there, but the minister just has assured us that the strategy now is to involve the local man in the local governments, but also in partnership, of course, with the private sector, because the largest economy contribution comes from those that are running informal businesses, but especially those in the private sector. I think the biggest question of the day is going to be for the civil society organizations, if this is their thing that they actually should join. We should be able to get the answer from the commission. Actually be seen heavily in the background, the gentleman in blue over there coming. Thank you very much, Commissioner. I very well know, of course, you may not have enough time. Congratulations for having finally, launched the project. And yes, say hi to the viewer.
Thank you very much, viewers, and thanks for witnessing this great occasion where we are launching the National Strategy for Local Economic Development, where the target is realigning local resources and self-help for 2021-22 to 2024-25.
Okay, very, very important. We've seen across all the
mainly in the campaign and mobilization and identification of resources and also opportunities within different localities. We will take cognizance of the contribution of the civil society within the localities, because they have been there before and they are still there and they are still actors, and therefore we call upon all civil society organizations to join hands within this tripartite arrangement for purposes of developing our localities.
Okay. The strategy also comes at a time when Uganda's population is dominated by young men. Is the strategy in their participation?
Oh, this is very important indeed, because the strategy highlights the need to strengthen skilling of not only youth but also women. Why women and youth? Because these are the backbone of our productive people, and we expect that once we take care of the skilling of the youth, then we'll be helping them to develop capacities, employ themselves, but also engage actively in production. And under this strategy, we are highlighting this because already the government is coming up with different initiatives for improving on the skills of youth through the presidential initiative of which has been developed and the State House Controller to develop hubs that will not only provide skills but also provide common user facilities, so those who gain skills can be able to produce for the market and also have money within their pockets.
Does that actually mean that it's the right time to have regional innovation centers for young people?
Oh yes, and as we speak now, 20 of them have been established within the original regional centers. Talk of Ankole, talk of Bukedi, talk of Kigezi, talk of Bugisu, talk of Karamoja, talk of West Nile in Isombo, talk of places like Masaka for Central, Kayunga for Mengo, Mubende, Chenjojo for Toro, Kasese, Bundibujo. All these 20 are aimed to provide the youth and the women with chances of improving their innovations, but also being skilled in certain trades that directly link to the market.
Okay, let's end this with from Minister's talk. He says one of the 12 points he notes is actually mindset change. What is the mindset out there in the communities? What needs to change?
The biggest challenge we've been having is where people think that they must only receive. Okay? This consumptive mentality, where people think that should only sit and receive from either partner, from government, but yet we know that the potential lie within the localities. They have the potential to produce. So when we're talking about mindset change and why it is emphasized under the project development, we need to change the entire paradigm of how we've been thinking that once you are within the village, therefore you are poor. No, we know that most of the activity that influence development emanate from the local communities. For example, where do we have the coffee chambers? Where do we have the maize produced? Where do we have minerals? All these are within the localities, and we believe once people are encouraged and advised on how to harness their resources, then we will be impacting on them in the development plan.
Okay, very, very, very important. Finally, from the online community, those that have been watching, one asks whether they should be able to access the document that has the strategy, but that also, of course, calls for how we are going to sell the strategy to the communities, basically.
Thank you very much. We are going to have this strategy downloaded on the ministry's website, on the Twitter handle and the Facebook. Therefore, it will be accessible, but also we are going to have series of workshops where we'll be meeting local communities, the commercial officers, with a view of spreading the gospel according to Nsled.
Okay, that's a better way to end it. Thank you very much, Commissioner, and we're glad you allowed to talk to us. We hope this strategy works and we should be to support it in growth. Thank you very much.
Most welcome, and thank you, viewers, and we should wish each other the best as we drive the lead to a different place.
Okay. Wow, thank you very much. That has been the Commissioner of Local Economic Development Strategy that we just launched today. Thank you very much. Until next time, we're still around and always great things coming in from our unit technology to 18.